Hi and welcome to Ryvis Rambles, where I talk about whatever the f I want. And in today's video, it's time for another media recap, where I'll be talking about the movies, shows and anime I watched, manga and books I read, and a game I played. Not sponsored by HelloFresh, by the way. A little reminder of my rating system is in the description below, but as always, a low star rating doesn't mean that it's bad, it just means it wasn't for me. As always, we start with movies. There might be some sounds from outside, I'm sorry, but I do live in a neighborhood. I watched K-pop Demon Hunters, Paddington, Paddington 2, Moonlight, Together, Dead Talent Society, Contra, rewatched Pulp Fiction, Bring Her Back, Queer Panorama, Unknown Number, The High School Catfish, and Kimetsu no Yaiba, Infinity Castle Part 1. K-pop Demon Hunters. The members of the famous K-pop band Hunter X balance their lives in the spotlight with their secret identities as demon hunters, using their music to save the world. I'm sure most of you watching this video already have heard about this movie. I watched it before the great hype, and I'm not saying this because I want to be like cool or better than anyone else, but because I was kind of surprised by the hype that followed. I think it's overall a very interesting idea to mix K-pop idolism with being demon hunters, but in my eyes the plot and characters were a bit flat. Apart from that, I also feel like it has a kind of childish or immature humor, which doesn't mean that none of the jokes landed, but maybe I'm just not the right audience. But since I liked the idea and the music obviously slapped, it gets 3 stars. Paddington 1 and 2. Paddington is a young bear who can walk and talk, and in the first movie travels to London from the jungles of Peru. There he is adopted by the Brown family and goes through many adventures in a big city. In the second movie, Paddington takes up a job to accumulate enough money to buy the perfect gift for his aunt on her 100th birthday, but it gets stolen. Paddington is very obviously a children's movie, which means that some or most of the drama is way over exaggerated, which in my opinion can be sometimes a bit over the top, but that just kind of shows to me that I'm the wrong audience. What I like about the movies is that it has children book vibes and it has a few funny moments. The second movie also has one very sad scene that I could relate to somewhat, but overall I was a bit bored. So the first movie gets 3 stars and the second movie gets 2 stars. Moonlight. Tyrone, a young African-American man, grapples with his identity and sexuality while experiencing the everyday struggles of childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. For this movie, I have to say I usually don't go into anything with expectations, but this time was a bit different. I heard so many times how good and sad this movie is that I couldn't help but expect to be in for an emotional ride. It is a good movie and I love how it depicts 3 phases of life, but it didn't make me sad, so 3 stars. Together. Years into their relationship, Tim and Millie find themselves at a crossroads as they move through the country. They have an encounter with an unnatural force which threatens to corrupt their life, their love, and their flesh. The film is full of good ideas and bad decisions, as in the ideas of the movie were creative, the decisions of the characters were stupid. The most horror I felt was in the pain. There are a few jump scares, and I don't know if they can be called solid, but they worked on me. I had fun watching this because I watched it with a friend and we basically had the same reaction to everything that happened, even though it was predictable for the most part. There were some fun moments in this movie, but only because of their absurdity. 3 stars. Dead Talent Society. To survive in the underworld, ghosts must compete to become the spookiest urban legends and famous stars. They use scare tactics and performances among the living to achieve their goals. The movie was super funny and unexpectedly heartfelt, I have to say. 3 stars. Contra. After unloading his racist resentments on a student, a professor must coach the student he disrespected, preparing her for a debate competition. Contra is a German movie which sheds light on the racism in Germany. I do have to say that the beginning felt a bit too on the nose or very much like a caricature. Not to say that a caricature is a bad thing, it just makes me take things less serious. But it got better over time and even made me a bit emotional at the end. 3 stars. Pulp Fiction. Lives of 2 mob hitmen, a boxer, a gangster and his wife, and a pair of diner bandits intertwine in 4 tales of violence and redemption. When I rewatched Pulp Fiction, I barely remembered anything. But what can I say, it's an iconic movie with an extensive conversation about foot massages. 4 stars. Bring her back. A brother and sister witness a terrifying ritual at the secluded home of their new foster mother. First of all, the foster mom is played by the same actress who's playing the mom in Paddington, so it was kind of fun to see her in those two very different roles. The movie itself was good. I really enjoyed it despite the scary bits. But I have to say, I wouldn't really call it scary. I see it more on the spooky side. And even though I really enjoyed it, I was too scared taking a shower afterwards. The acting is really good, the storytelling is really good, and I would watch it again if I wasn't so scared. 4 stars. Queer Panorama. A guy who impersonates men he had sex with brings these new personas with him to his next casual encounters. First of all, it's an artsy black and white movie. I really love this movie. It's quite philosophical and I share some of the sentiments. The main character actually meets many men in this movie and each encounter is a guy from a different country. I love to hear the different stories and worldviews of these different men. It's basically a small anthology, though there's a red thread running through all of the encounters. And that's the question of the main character's own identity. My favorite scene is after his encounter with the delivery guy. Part of his face is in shadow and one tear is running down his face, tracing the edge of the shadow. That was honestly like a visual orgasm for me. And even though I liked it a lot, I wouldn't watch it again per se because I wouldn't get any new information. But I would watch an entire series of this where he gets to meet many more men from other countries. 4 stars. Unknown Number, High School Catfish. It's a documentary about a teen girl and her boyfriend at the time who faced persistent harassment from an unknown caller, followed by months of police investigation until the unexpected culprit is finally caught. There was a small hype about this documentary which made me watch it, not gonna lie. I have to say it's crazy what happened. The culprit is not who I thought it was gonna be. I was a bit hung up on the word catfish because the person sending the messages wasn't really a catfish. I thought a catfish is a person who pretends to be someone else, trying to lure them into a meeting and then not turning out to be who they claim to be. And that's basically the only reason I wanted to talk about this is because I have a different definition of catfish, and what they showed in the documentary is, in my eyes, not catfish behavior. Here's an official definition. A catfish lures someone into a relationship by means of a fictional online persona. But whatever, it's a well-made documentary, I guess. 3 stars. Kimetsu no Yaiba Infinity Castle Part 1. Or Akaza the movie. Let's be honest, we were all just here for him, right? Not just me, right? In this movie series, the Demon Slayer Corps are drawn into the Infinity Castle where Tanjiro and the Hashira face terrifying upper rank demons in a desperate fight as the final battle against Muzan begins. This is the first movie of the trilogy adaptation of the Infinity Castle arc. I love the animation in Kimetsu no Yaiba. I think I've mentioned it before. I always felt that it had a cinematographic vibe to it. I always wanted to watch it on a big screen, so when the movie finally came out, I was so excited and I loved it. Not only because of the amazing animation, but also because it had a lot of emotional scenes. 4 stars. Shows. I watched Peaky Blinders Season 1 and 2, The Bear Season 4, the entirety of The Dragon Prince or Mystery of Erebos, The Sandman Season 2, Love Between Fairy and Devil, Too Much Season 1, Adult Season 1, Wednesday Season 2, Karma, Severance Season 1 and 2, Armenia Season 1, and Long Story Short Season 1. Peaky Blinders Season 1 and 2. A notorious gang in 1919, Birmingham, England, is led by the fierce Tommy Shelby, a crime boss set on moving up in the world no matter the cost. Peaky Blinders is objectively a good show. It has a good cinematography, it has really beautiful pictures, it's visually stunning, it has a good sound design, and probably also a good plot if you're into scheming gangs. The story is very plot heavy. Unfortunately, it's not about the gangs that I care about, and I don't like Thomas Shelby. I also absolutely love Tommy Shelby's wide walk, like the way he holds his arms far away from his body, like, oh look at me fellas, is it gay to touch yourself? Unfortunately, I'm not interested in characters and it's not about the gangs I care about, but still it's very pretty to look at, so 3 stars. The Bear Season 4. The Bear is about food, family, and the insanity of the grind. It's a losing battle every day in the restaurant business, and as Kami pushes himself harder than ever and demands excellence from his crew, they do their best to match his insanity. They do their best to match his intensity. Similar to Peaky Blinders, I don't know what it is about the bear because I'm not really interested in the characters, but something about the show is very compelling to me. I think what I like is that the conversations feel very real and not scripted, and then there's a certain focus on the characters and the emotions. I noticed, for example, that the cameras are always very close up to their face to really focus in on their emotions. 3 stars. The Dragon Prince, or Mystery of Erebos, Season 1 to 7. An extraordinary discovery inspires 2 human princes and an elven assassin sent to kill them to team up on an epic quest to bring peace to their warring lands. I watched the first 3 seasons before actually, but I didn't know there were more until the final season aired, so I watched it all from the beginning because I literally didn't remember anything. I just knew that I liked it. If I forget something, it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just a funny little thing my brain does. It only remembers the emotions I felt while watching or reading something and barely, if anything, from the plot or the characters. It's a fun and quirky show, and unlike Captain Demon Hunters, I actually like the humor in this one. The show is filled with funny quips, some of them so dry and self-aware that they caught me completely off guard. Then all the characters, including the side characters, are so charming with lots of personality. However, for Arrows especially, I have to say I do like his voice, but it, in my opinion, doesn't really match his design. And the slow pace of his speech gets a bit annoying after a while. Also, while it's in a fantasy setting, it has lots of modern world elements like a rating system or jazz hands. Aside from that, it's also filled with pop cultural references like one does not simply walk into Zadia. 4 stars. The Sandman Season 2. After years of imprisonment, the King of Dreams embarks on a journey across worlds and timelines to find what was stolen from him and restore his powers. Honestly, I don't like the Sandman. I don't even remember why I watched the first season. I don't really care for the fantastical elements, and Dream also talks so infuriatingly slow, just like Erebus. It's so annoying. But to be fair, the show has a few fun moments, but they're rare. 2 stars. Love between fairy and devil. When a low-ranked fairy accidentally resurrects a powerful demon, the fates become cosmically entangled as the world is thrown into turmoil. So there was quite the hype about this drama, and I finally caught up, and have to say I don't get it. I don't really understand the appeal. I agree that the whole body switch and connected feelings idea is fun, but everything else? Especially once the demon lord regained his emotions, he kinda lost his charm to me. One thing I have to commend though is that the acting of the female lead, except her crying, is better than the male lead, especially at the ending. I'm sorry, but I just didn't buy his grief at all. My favorite in this entire show was Jilly. I also liked her makeup the best. 2 stars. Too Much Season 1. When a heartbroken New Yorker moves to London hoping for a love story, she falls for an indie musician. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this show because the timeline is a bit confusing. After they hook up, they're suddenly a couple and sometimes have a fight that, to me, came out of the blue. Apart from that, similar to with Bear, the conversations felt real, meaning that they didn't feel scripted but taken out of real life. So all in all, the show's watchable. 3 stars. Adult Season 1. It's a show about a group of 20-somethings living together in New York. The housemates tackle a range of adult responsibilities to varying degrees of success. I watched the entire season in one day, which felt a bit like a fever dream. I enjoyed it though and could relate to some parts. I also love the ending of the season. I could be biased, but honestly that's the only path they could take, in my opinion. 4 stars. Wednesday Season 2. While attending Nevermore Academy, Wednesday Addams attempts to master her emerging psychic ability, thwart a killing spree, and solve the mystery that embroiled her parents. Watching Season 2, I had a bit of trouble to getting back into it, and I kind of questioned why or what I liked about Season 1. It took me a couple of episodes, but overall I enjoyed it again. I think what I loved most about the season is that we get to know Thing's backstory, and I really liked his or its identity crisis in this season. 3 stars. Karma. A fateful accident intertwines 6 lives in a thrilling tale of karma and crime, where each must face their own dark truth and connections. I wasn't quite sure in the beginning what tone the drama was going for. Was it trying to be dark or funny? Because it's more on the light side for the most part until the end of episode 3. That's when the plot thickens and it takes a really dark turn. It's overall a really good plot, and I like the way the characters are connected. 4 stars. Severance Season 1 and 2. Mark leads a team of office workers whose memories have been surgically divided between their work and personal lives. When a mysterious colleague appears outside of work, it begins a journey to discover the truth about their jobs. Severance is another hype show I finally caught up, and this time I absolutely get it. When I started watching this show, I initially wanted to only watch like 1-2 episodes and ended up binging both seasons in 3 days. It's super thrilling. The camera movements when they walk through the building are insane, or not insane per se, but kind of like very satisfying to watch. I love the visual representation when they switch between their indie and outies, and it's just aesthetically pleasing in general. I really like the way they use color, for example. And I also like that everything at Lumen feels slightly off. Everything feels so uncanny, and they conveyed the feeling very well. I guess the only criticism I have is that I definitely liked season 1 more than season 2, because in season 2 it got a bit confusing, at least for me, if the characters are the indie version or the outie version right now. I also like the ending of season 1, and I'm so glad I didn't have to wait for season 2. That's probably why I also binged it, because I just could continue watching it. The ending of season 2, however, is fine. Not as satisfying, not as cliffhangery, so let's just say I don't mind waiting for the 3rd season. 4 stars. Almania season 1. Pedantic teacher Frank Stümpe gets transferred to a multicultural high school where, because of his prejudices, things don't always go as planned. This show probably ended up in my algorithm because I watched Contra. It deals with similar topics but has a worse representation. Almania is done in a mockumentary style gone wrong. It just felt off. It didn't really translate. Each character has one line which they play and repeat. But there's one girl that always says, "Okay, wow," and it kind of stuck with me. Like, I subconsciously adapted it and started saying "okay, wow" as well. Apart from that, all the characters are very stereotypical. Take the main character, Frank Stümpe, for example. He claims to be asexual and he feels like a caricature, like the unfeeling, emotionless robot. And as an asexual person, I couldn't help but feel offended. After watching the show that left a lukewarm impression, I read some comments because I wanted to know if other people felt the same way. Unfortunately, the comments perfectly reflected the racism shown in the show. It was mainly Germans writing racist comments and complaining about immigrants. Y'all missed the point of the show. 3 stars. Long story short, season 1. A dysfunctional family's shared history, inside jokes and old wounds are explored, spanning multiple years. It's a cute little show from the creators of BoJack Horseman, but much less depressing. And similar to Moonlight, it highlights the 3 phases of life, but unlike Moonlight, it's not split into those 3 phases but jumps back and forth. I had fun watching it. 3 stars. Books. I've read Legend of Exorcism Volume 2, Arha Volume 9, Everything Annoys Me and I'm Too Hot Volume 2, Ballad of Sword and Wine Volume 5, and My Husband and I Sleep in a Coffin Volume 1. Legend of Exorcism Volume 2. Although the Department of Exorcism has successfully thwarted Fox Yao's attempt to infiltrate the Imperial examination, Hong Jun, Li Jinglong, and their companions are no closer to uncovering the identity of the Yao King of Chang'an. Investigations stall until the group stumbles across a series of bloody murders in the capital. After reading the 2nd volume, I have to say admit that the writing feels a bit unedited. Not all of it, but around 80 to 90%, mainly because it does a bad job at show don't tell, and most of the conversations feel a bit random. Still, it's charming and I like it. It has a bit of slapstick humor, if that's what it's called. 4 stars. Aha Volume 9. Modan awakens in prison at Tianyan Pavilion, awaiting trial for his crimes. Far away on Mount Jiao, Chu Wanning too has awakened with the memories of 2 lifetimes. Distraught, he rushes to Modan's rescue, hoping to clear his name in time to save him. Okay, I feel a bit meh about this volume. It's a bit unsatisfying because I'm not sure where this is headed. The only thing that keeps me reading is the hope that my man Chu Wanning gets to have a single day of peace. 3 stars. Everything Annoys Me and I'm Too Hot, Volume 2. As mentioned in my last recap video, this is my fanfic to the drama The Untamed, using Ding Yushi's character from Love, Game and Eastern Fantasy as face claim for my protagonist, Lan Xiaoli. The 2nd volume focuses on Lan Xiaoli's past and his love story subplot. I love it. 5 stars. Ballad of Sword and Wine, Volume 5. As Shen Zijian attempts to consolidate power in Zhongbo with the aid of Yao Wenyu, his greatest stumbling block continues to be his own name. If he wants to expand his hold over the region, he must find a way to overcome his past. Meanwhile, Xiaojie struggles to find his footing in the Li Bei armored cavalry. He is hungry to step out of his father and brother's shadow and become the commander who carries Li Bei to victory. This volume was focused on political stuff only. I know it's always been quite political, but I was more interested or invested when Shen Zijuan and Xiaojie were still plotting against each other. Now it's just meh. 2 stars. My husband and I sleep in a coffin, volume 1. Wang Xiaomie wakes up to a shocking reality. He now inhabits the body of a 1,000-year-old corpse dressed in elaborate wedding attire. He finds himself sharing a coffin with Wen Fengjin, an immortal warrior who has spent centuries waiting for the return of his lost lover. This shit is written even worse than Legend of Exorcism. It has major fanfic vibes. It doesn't feel like an official publication. To be frank, it feels like it was written by a 14-year-old. At least that's what the fanfic sounded that I wrote when I was 14. Most of the plot plays in one room until chapter 40 or 41, I think. Most of the plot feels like an afterthought and it's very, very unsubstantial. The characters are super shallow and the potentially interesting past isn't really shown but only narrated, and that also very uninterestingly, or well, in very few sentences. And then there are diary entries at the beginning of some chapters which basically just sum up what's going to happen, so there's kinda no need to read the entire chapter. Like, there's no additional information, it's just a more detailed description of the diary entry. Overall, the story has a very light-hearted comedic tone with little to no depth. 2 stars. Anime. I watched Dandadan Season 2, the first and second short film of Heaven Official's Blessing, The Summer Hikaru Died Season 1, Kaiju number 8 Season 2, Toganki Part 1 of Season 1, and Sakamoto Days Part 2 of Season 1. Dandadan Season 2. While the mission to exorcise Gigi's family home is underway, things are not going as expected. As Momo, Okarun and Gigi are drawn deeper into the maze of folklore and supernatural entities, they must each utilize their unique powers if they want to survive and unravel the secrets of the uncanny town. Dandadan leaves me a bit torn, to be honest. I like the art style, I love the animation, the plot is funny and interesting, but I don't like the rapey bits. It's interesting how Momo isn't bothered or traumatized despite being assaulted most of the time, but okay. The animation still slaps though. 3 stars. Heaven Official's Blessing, short film 1 and 2. As you can see, I used the screenshot because there's no official poster. Then the first and second part of a short film about the main couple's first encounter and a post-epilogue extra from the book where Xie has to solve a riddle. I also already have a ranking, if you will, and that's that I like the second one more than the first one. The reason for that is that I do have my issues with the age gap. I hate age gaps in general, like especially if they're that big, but that's a me problem. A third film is already planned and I'm very looking forward to it because apparently it covers the underwater kiss. Anyways, I loved it. I mean, I'm already in love with the story and the characters, but I'm always happy to see it in motion. I'm also a big fan of the animation and art style, and I think it's my favorite donghua. At least it's the most fluid I've seen so far. I was a bit disappointed though that the films are basically just half an episode. 4 stars. Summer Hikaru Died Season 1. After he went missing for 6 months, Hikaru suddenly returns with no recollection of what has transpired. Certain that Hikaru is not himself, Yoshiki confronts him about it and discovers the terrifying truth. As Yoshiki desperately clings to Hikaru in his intense grief, it becomes increasingly clear that something dangerous and supernatural may have descended from the mountains into their village. I have to say the first episode didn't sell it to me, but the second episode got me, and after the third episode I was hooked. It wasn't until episode 7 though that I fully loved it. There's an uncertain mood that's constantly running throughout the anime, but in a good way. Like, it just feels right. It just feels like it belongs. But that's not what I like about this anime. What I like is, for one, the world building, to be honest, and that it's very pretty in my eyes, but especially that there's so much room for interpretation regarding the monster, and mine is, you guessed it, it's about being gay. I haven't read the manga, so maybe there is no need for interpretation anymore, but so far Yoshiki hasn't explicitly stated that he's gay, so I'm still calling it my interpretation. 4 stars. Kaiju number 8 Season 2. Following the massive operation that led to the confinement of recent recruit Kafka Hibino, otherwise known as Kaiju number 8, the defense force has been puzzled by how to deal with him. Kafka is the very first Kaiju to side with humans, and after careful consideration, he is eventually transferred to the defense force's 1st Division in the hope of adding his power to the strongest division capable of handling any threat. Unfortunately, without its comedy and without my favorites, this anime is rather lacking. I didn't enjoy it as much as Season 1 because most of what happened wasn't interesting to me, at least up until episode 6. That's when Hoshina and Ichikawa are back and the plot actually takes a turn and becomes more interesting starting from episode 6. I especially love the mix of despair and hope at the end of the season. 3 stars. Togenanki Part 1 of Season 1. Why are there so many airplanes? It's Sunday! Tougen Anki, part 1 of season 1. After Momotaro's assassin suddenly kills his adoptive father, Shiki vows to avenge him. But first he must learn to control his newly awakened Oni blood. Okay, I don't like it. I mean, it's a classic shonen because they are calling out the names of their attacks. It has a classic shonen humor, which usually is funny enough for me, no matter how flat, because I like shonen. But the characters are so stereotypical and not even in a fun way. It's just annoying. I found myself rolling my eyes more often than not. I also, another one. I actually thought I might like it a bit more at the beginning, especially because of this rollerblades guy. I don't know his name, I don't care. Because I thought it was a fun quirk to just like go everywhere in rollerblades, and his character gave me Wednesday vibes. But the further the anime progressed, the less I liked it. There are things that I usually like in a shonen, but just feel cringier. Like when the protagonist says, if this means to be a hero, then I'm gonna be a villain. I don't know, I cringed. And usually, even though it's such a cheesy line, in any other shonen I think I would have been fine with it, but here I just cringed. I really tried to like it, but it just gives me the heebie-jeebies. And then there's so much over exposition. Instead of showing the things, they just explain everything. And what's even worse is that it tries to hit the emotional spot but keeps on missing it. I feel they place the deeply emotional stuff too soon because we're not really connected to the characters yet. I don't know. It wasn't believable, I didn't buy it, I only cringed. 2 stars. Sakamoto Days, part 2 of season 1. A mysterious and infamous figure known as Slur has brought a group of insane death row inmates to Japan who hold back from nothing to eliminate their targets. Sakamoto is not the only target. The criminals have been assigned to kill various other people, including the new hires at Sakamoto's convenience store, Shin and Lu. The situation escalates even further when the Order, a group of the most skilled Japanese assassins, becomes involved. Okay, first thing I noticed right off the bat is that they removed that weird overlay they used in part 1. Or they made it a lot more subtle. Either way, it looks so much better now. It also introduced new characters that piqued my interest, Akira being the only one I'm not vibing with. Overall, I liked it more than the first part, 3 stars. Manga. I finished Mashle. I've read Koisuru Tetsumenpi, Please Pay Tonight or Pending Approval, finished Versus Law, and read Therapy Game. Mashle Volume 18. Volume 18 is the final volume, which means it's also the final battle against Innocent Zero. And ironically enough, Mash, who can't use magic in a world where magic is everything, is the people's only hope of winning. In the final battle, every character returns to help literally everyone, even the officer from chapter 1, I think. It once again made me laugh many a time and I love it. It was good without fail from start to finish. 5 stars. Koisuru Tetsumenpi Volume 6. Kitagawa Ryono is the company's most popular hottie and the ace of the sales department, but he has a secret he can't tell anyone. His face turns red from any unexpected turn of events, so once he realizes that he calms down in front of his strict and awkward senior Natsume, he becomes attached to him. They fall for each other and this volume continues their story as a couple. This manga series deals with different couples, and in Volume 6 we're back to the OG couple. There's no real plot if we're being honest, it's not really going anywhere. The drama, I have to say, feels a bit forced and it's not really compelling, and I was a bit more in love with the characters at the beginning of the series. And the USP of the main character always blushing feels a bit like beating a dead horse by now. Nevertheless, it's a quick read, something I can easily snack away. 3 stars. Please Pay Tonight or Pending Approval. For some reason it has 2 titles. A group of college friends find themselves working for the same corporation, entangled in office romances no one saw coming. 4 departments, 4 love stories, 1 HR nightmare. Please Pay Tonight is an anthology of workplace short stories, all working at the same company but only connected through a group chat. I don't really like anthologies, to be honest, because it's hard to convey a believable romance in only a few chapters, and I feel it's rarely well done in these anthologies. When I started reading, I didn't know it was an anthology, but since I already started, I also wanted to finish it. Well, it's honestly so stupid. No. 2 stars. Versus Love Volume 2. Ibuki and Suzumi are the leaders of 2 rival school gangs, and despite their constant fights over territory, seeing each other was love at the first sight. Versus Love is finished with 2 volumes. I didn't know it would only have 2 volumes because I actually really liked the plot and I was hoping I would get more of it, but the plot felt quite fast-paced in the first volume already, so I guess it kind of makes sense that it was this short. The ending, I have to say, is not too bad, so I'll take it. 4 stars. Therapy Game Volume 5. Minato, with Shizuma along to assist, is on location for a photo shoot he's doing for the girls at the bar. In true Minato fashion, he fully immerses himself in his work, so much so that he doesn't realize that he completely forgot Shizuma's birthday. And to make matters worse, being on location means he's unable to get him a present. I love Therapy Game, it's honestly one of my favorite manga, but I don't like the current B-plot or subplot, I don't know what it's called, but the side plot with Shizuma's boss. Usually I'm all for drama, but I don't like where this is potentially headed. Apart from that, I love the art and I love them. 4 stars. Now, ongoing, I've been reading Wet Sand, Jinx, 19 Days, Moo Stray Dogs, Kagurabachi, Ori no Seraph, and Hitorejime My Hero. And finally, games. Or a game to be precise, because I've only played one. If Found. Set in the 90s, If Found explores the struggles of queer teens in a small town on the Irish island Echo. I hope that's how it's pronounced. I'm sorry. If Found is a visual novel, basically just point and click, or erase in this case. The game mechanics are quite creative in my opinion, and the gameplay is around 4 to 5 hours. In this game we learn a few fun facts about Ireland. I love the art style, it has a cute plot, it's quite short but worthwhile. After finishing it, it stuck with me for a long time despite being so short. I have to say the story hits very close to home. I felt so seen. One thing I resonated with the most was the whole name thing, because the main character changed her name to Kazuo. Her friends are accepting her new name, but her family not so much, and I kind of felt that. Overall, I enjoyed it and I can actually recommend playing it, especially because it's so short. 4 stars. If listening to random people talking about random stuff on the internet appeals to you, leave a like and subscribe. And if there's anything you want to hear me ramble about, leave your suggestion in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching and stay tuned for the next one. Bye!